Intro session for our upcoming feature bootcamp, which is going to be 8 weeks to write a full first draft of a feature. You're going to have a little extra time because we have the holidays that are going to kind of be in the middle of this. So this is the session of the year where you will have those extra weeks to get everything just right, or at least to catch up on work that you've missed. The goal is not to write something perfect in the class, but to learn strategies for organizing a feature script and learn how to outline and learn how to execute on that outline within a reasonable time frame. So we are going to learn, not how to write a perfect movie, but just how to write a movie in this class. So before we start, make sure to just check your microphone settings. You should remain muted most of the time. You can find that small gray microphone icon in the bottom left corner of your Discord screen. You can click that to mute your mic and unmute yourself if you're called upon in class. There will be lots of opportunities for you to be called upon and to speak about your idea at length. We like to ask lots of questions and help you work out your logline during these first few sessions, so we can provide some of that initial feedback if you're just wondering, how do I start to shape this into a proper movie idea? But make sure to just check that small gray microphone icon and make sure that's on for the most part. So, what is Script Camp? We're a screenwriting community, which is part of Skill Camp. And in this server, we offer many free and low-cost classes to learn how to go from idea to first draft to a polished script. We have these free classes, events, and workshops, and some are for our supporting members, which are going to include things like the full boot camps, the writers labs, advanced labs, and other events like that. So this right now is the free intro session of our boot camp. So if you want to continue past this, make sure to sign up and become a supporting member. Skill Camp is our nonprofit organization. We have free and low-cost classes to help you learn skills and reach your life goals. Script Camp was our first and is our biggest server so far, but we're adding new ones, and we have new classes starting up all the time. So make sure to come by and join Film Camp, Creator Camp, Toon Camp for animation, Word Camp for writing novels, Design Camp for graphic design, Lingo Camp for learning languages, and Code Camp for learning how to program. And we just added a whole course for that that's coming up in January, Coding for Beginners. So if you become a supporting member, you should donate, and you will get access to all boot camps and labs. You can donate $29 a month with the yearly discount to get a yearly subscription. You can also volunteer if you know a skill or language you'd like to teach. Then contact Nacho or me, and you can tell your friends to refer somebody. You will get a free month of Unlimited plus a month of Arc Studio Pro, which is a great screenwriting software. So here's a bit about me. I have been writing full-length scripts for 11, 12 years now. Moved to LA in 2015 with no connections. Got signed for the first time by my first manager in 2017 after I placed in the top 10 of the Launchpad contest. From then on, I went to place in the Nickel semifinals and quarterfinals, and I wrote an episode of Shudder's Creepshow back in 2019. I've been featured in a couple lists that you can see here, and I have a thriller script that's set up with DJ2 Entertainment currently, which is the producers of the Sonic the Hedgehog movies in Hollywood at the moment. I teach these screenwriting boot camps and weekly writers lab. I also teach novel boot camp over on the novel writing server called Word Camp, and I'll be teaching Intro to German coming up on Lingo Camp. And just if you are not aware, our co-founder is Nacho, who is also in the server and runs many events as well. So here's what's new and what's coming up. We have plenty of things going on right now. Like I mentioned, I'm teaching feature, TV, and novels. New novel classes will start in February, but for the moment, the sessions that we're currently running are features, which is going to start. This is the intro class, but the first official meeting is going to be January 8th. So this is to help you get ready and prepared for that class by figuring out your exact logline and helping you to shape your idea more and more over the holidays as you start to refine what this actually is and what you're making. Pilot Bootcamp, new TV Pilot Bootcamp starts Friday, December 16th. That's coming up in about 2 weeks, and that's going to be Fridays from 6 to 8. All these times are in Pacific time. We have Script Analysis Bootcamp that Nacho runs Thursdays at 6. You should attend if you want to learn how to break down scripts, learn what's working about them, figure out the structure, mark out all the act breaks, and just analyze the dramatic work. We have new sessions of cinematography lighting and home studio lighting on Film Camp and Creator Camp. That's going to be December 17th. Animation classes Tuesdays at 3 over on Toon Camp, and we are starting character design on Toon Camp in December as well. So, plenty of classes there. If you're just joining us, welcome. Thanks for coming in. If you would like, you can click next to my name in the Discord channel where it says the word live, and you can watch our video slideshow presentation along with my if you want to watch that as well as hear my voice. So make sure to look on the left side of your Discord screen, and you'll find a channel called Classroom. That's what we're in right now, so click where it says the red bubble that says live next to my name, and you can watch along with our slideshow. Plenty of stuff coming up. You can see a bunch of other events. We have a Halloween contest award ceremony December 10th with an industry guest, Max Perry, writer of the Sacha Baron Cohen series The Spy on Netflix. He's going to give comments on the winners, and we're going to do table reads of the winning short horror scripts. That's going to be December 10th, maybe about an hour long for that event there. That's coming up just next week on this upcoming Saturday. We have plenty of clubs, Fantasy Club, we have Horror Workshop, and multiple comedy groups as well that meet every week. We have table reads Sundays from 2 to 5. That's later today. We have script swaps Tuesdays at 5 and another session Wednesdays at 11, so you can come in with a script that you've written, trade with somebody else, and exchange feedback with them. It's the best way to get really organized and on-time feedback from somebody by giving them feedback yourself. And Fantasy Workshop is later today at 5 o'clock. That's run by our moderator, Amanda. So, plenty of things to check out on all of our different servers. On Script Camp alone, you could come to 3 classes or 4 classes a week if you really wanted to. We usually recommend you try to pick one boot camp to really focus on, but as a member, you have full access to check out the other classes. You don't have to sign up for them in advance. If you're a member, you can just show up and check out what they're all about. You don't have to follow along with the program. You can just audit the class if you want to. And you'll also have access as a member to our video library, which includes videos of all the previous classes. So, what's the boot camps? What is a boot camp? These are courses that take you from idea to first draft, or you can bring a rewrite project if you're doing a substantial rewrite and thus kind of move it to the next draft. But you'll want to make sure to get notes and feedback on that beforehand using our many different options that we mentioned, such as the script swaps or the table reads or things like that. So what else? So here we are. So step-by-step, 2-hour weekly classes with me. We run 8 weeks for the feature, 6 weeks for the TV pilot. In the past, we've run shorter boot camps for things like a short film or for pitching strategies. Those have been about 4 weeks long. And then 12 weeks for the novel boot camp. So that's our longest one. Hearing a little bit of feedback from somebody's mic. If you could just make sure to click that small gray mute button in the bottom left corner of your screen, you'll find a small microphone that you can use to mute yourself. Thank you. Okay, so feature bootcamp schedule. Let's look at what this course has to offer. This is week 0. This is a free intro session that's intended to give you an overview of the entire course and to maybe give you that preliminary feedback on your idea. If you just have like a piece of an idea or you have a few that you're trying to choose between, we can try to give you that first feedback today and help you start to shape that into something that is going to be easier to work with moving forward. Excuse me. So next week will be, next week. The first week of this class is January 8th, and that's going to focus on why this story, like you're going to try to settle on a story idea. If you have several that you've chosen or that you're trying to choose between, you're really going to want to pick one to work on for the class. And we're going to work on filling out that sketchbook, which is going to be the a sort of unsorted aggregation of all of your notes, research material, and early ideas for the project. So you'll have all of the holidays to be working on that, and we can maybe take a look at sketchbooks during week 1. Week 2 is outlining, so we're going to look at a broad overview of the entire story with the major events in the proper order that they must go in. Week 3 is going to be an expansion of that outline into what we call scene cards, which is a full paragraph for every scene, with the idea that we should know what's going to happen on every page, more or less, before we even write a single page of the script. We start the script on week 4, which is January 29th, and that's where you're going to be writing about 20 to 25 pages a week, meaning about 4 or 5 pages per weekday if you're just writing on weekdays. And from then on, you're going to try to keep that pace up all the way until the end and finish that first draft by March 5th. So this runs from beginning of January to beginning of March, 8 weeks to write a full draft of a feature film. It's okay if you're of any skill level. This is open to beginners and more experienced students too. So wherever you are, we'll try to meet you there and help you push through this first draft. And this, if this is your first ever script, it's a big accomplishment just to say, I finished this, it's done. And it kind of proves that you can do it. So by the end of this, you should know that you can write a whole script. Whether or not it's perfect, is kind of beside the point. You have to go to the gym and start running laps if you want to be in the Olympics. So we're not really going to focus on writing a perfect or amazing or even particularly good script. You're going to be instead incentivized to pick something that you're a little less attached to, so you can just learn how to write a script. So try not to pick a masterpiece for this class or something you've been working on your whole life, or something that means a lot to you and something that you're going to have to get absolutely perfect before you're happy with it. Pick something newer and fresher that is going to be just fun and get you excited and keep your interest and attention up for the 8 weeks that it requires to get all the way through it. And then after it's done, you can come back and edit it later if you want to, but there's no actual requirement to do that. And people tend to just learn a lot from just writing a draft. Sorry, got a bit of a scratchy throat today. Okay, so that's the overview of the whole course. Today is all about just giving you a look forward at everything that is to come, and also to start giving you that first little bit of feedback. So if you're thinking, I have an idea for a movie, maybe start trying to write out a one-sentence version that would express that plot. We have a lot of guidelines and guidance for these things called loglines, which are just a one-sentence expression of what is the movie about. And that is going to be helpful for you to both explain to people what the movie is, to get them interested in reading it, but it's also going to act as a sentence, one single sentence that's very important because it will help you stay on track and make sure that you're writing the same movie from beginning to end. So we can start on that today. It doesn't have to be perfect today. If you already have some log lines that you want to get reviewed, you can do that in the second half of this class. So the first half will be looking at everything that is to come in the course and answering some of those initial questions that you guys might have. And then the second half is going to be, you're going to share what you have, and we're going to give you feedback. So you should be ready to maybe post a few sentences about your ideas, or if you're juggling between multiple ideas and you want to know which one you should go with, then maybe write out like a sentence or two for each one, and a title if you have titles. And we want to start sharing and interacting and getting feedback even very early on. We're not going to crush your dreams, don't worry. I mean, you can write anything you want. There are certain guidelines and things that will be easier to write as a beginner that we're going to give you suggestions and help you maybe pick something that will be more within your reach if that's an issue. But get used to receiving a lot of feedback if you want to be a screenwriter, to say the least. Okay, so how to join. You can buy the course on its own at scriptcamp.net/classes, or you can become a supporting member at scriptcamp.net/membership. That's going to be 40% off if you buy that yearly. If you haven't signed up yet, but you want to, you can vote yes in the poll that Nacho is going to leave in our text chat to get immediate access to our bootcamp channels and to join the discussion and to start participating in the text conversation that we have here. So there's live in-person classes, like interactive classes like this, and we also always have our chat channels open for you to share ideas and give each other feedback and just talk about your writing. So lots of opportunities to interact and to get all the help that you might need and to keep yourself motivated and energized to finish. Okay, let's proceed to our slide on membership. So unlimited membership includes all boot camps in all of the skill camp classes. So although you'll be signing up at scriptcamp.net, this will still give you full access to every class that we do on all these different servers. So this is much more than just screenwriting at this point. You can take classes in novel writing, animation, coding, languages, and all these things for just the same price. You don't pay more for additional servers. There's over 70 hours of live classes a month. At this point, it's maybe getting closer to 100 hours. Including all the different topics. So you'll also get access to that video library, which has recordings of the previous classes. So I highly recommend start your free trial for that at scriptcamp.net/membership, and you'll get 2 weeks to try out everything you want and no obligation, so you can cancel at the end if you want. And maybe try out a yearly subscription if you want to save 40%. We've also got coaching options if you want to get everything included in Unlimited plus weekly coaching sessions with me. I can give you feedback on career questions or on specific pages of a script or whatever you want once a week. You also, if you sign up for either of these memberships, will get $100 off consultations and proofreads. The full feedback on your script is not included in the course. I would have to read way too many scripts to give everyone feedback. So we have lots of free feedback options like we mentioned on the server, like swaps and table reads, and you can just post your script and see if anyone wants to give you feedback. Or you can buy it, at which point I can give you full sticky notes throughout the script, plus a half-hour call to explain those points and to answer your questions and give you more help there. So that's here's a little more about that. You can get that scriptcamp.net/coverage. Okay, so why not introduce yourself? We're going to just maybe go down the list, and you can tell us about yourself. What are your goals as a writer? Have you written scripts before, or is this your very first one? What kind of genres are you interested in, or who's your favorite screenwriter, or what kind of movies do you want to make? Feel free to just share anything about yourself that you want in relation to this course. I'm just going to go right down the list and call on people. If you want me to come back to you or something like that, just let me know. Make sure to click that small gray microphone icon and to unmute yourself before you speak. Let's start with Amber Patton at the top.
Of course. Hi. Again, my name is Amber Patton. I am a novelist, screenwriter, short story writer, playwright. I would say I am not quite a beginner. I'm a little past that. As far as my writing goes, I've produced a handful of short films and written most of those, directed and acted. Um, I mostly write drama, mostly family dramas, and I think that's kind of my niche there as far as screenwriting goes. I love just character-driven stories. I love to find that beautiful arc from where a character begins to where they end. And yeah, I just like human stories. I very much am interested in just the overall human condition. So yeah, I've been doing this for the last 7 to 10 years. So I'm really just looking to take my writing to a more professional level and really start putting my work out there to be seen by more people.
Great. Thanks so much, Amber. And will this be your first feature scripts?
No, this will be my second feature.
Second. Okay. So, awesome that you have some experience going in, though. Like, all forms of writing can help. They sort of help each other. So, like, if you're doing plays and novels and these things, too, they all sort of, like, they're different mediums, but having experience in one will help in other ways. Like, playwrights tend to be really good at dialogue, for instance, and novelists tend to be really good at description. Things like that. So, it all adds up and it all helps. So, glad to have you. Thank you so much for telling us all that. Let's check in with Dan.
Hello, I'm Dan. I have I just got through one of these courses, and I will say this to anyone who decides to go full with this. Before I will preempt this, saying if you see there's also the pilot class or other big multi-week course, don't do two at the same time. Trust me.
Yes, go ahead.
But I've been currently in the process of writing it, and I'm pretty sure that I'm going to try and finish it during this 8-week process.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's what we usually recommend is we've seen many attempt to do multiple boot camps at once, never seen somebody actually able to finish all of those projects, and they end up having to cut one loose and prioritize. So not a big deal. You can always try, but like we've just never seen it, so don't usually recommend it. You're going to probably be better off focusing on making one script really good at a time, rather than having two that end up just kind of like okay or unfinished. Are there any other tips that you would give to new people, Dan, who are trying this for the first time?
As in the very first writing project?
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna suck.
It's gonna suck.
You just write it. Just don't think. Don't overthink. Don't underthink either. Just don't think. Just write.
Yeah, that's what. So, when you're writing in such a condensed form like this, like 8 weeks for the whole thing, that only leaves 4 weeks for the writing. We really spend that first 4 weeks getting all of our ducks in a row and all of your plot elements in place early on, because when you're in that 4-week sprint, you can't overthink too much, and you can't always be changing the outline and rearranging the outline, or you'll just get yourself confused. So yeah, when you get to the actual sprinting through it, writing phase of the second half of the course, you can't overthink. You can't be always second-guessing yourself. That's a good suggestion. Thank you, Dan. Let's check with Elle.
Hi, you guys. My name is Elle Lockhart. I am a grant writer, publishing agent, and an executive producer. I'm currently working with OTT Networks in content acquisition. This is my very first script.
Awesome.
So I'm excited. Glad to be here.
So is this, do you want to pursue screenwriting as, in addition to what you already do, you think? Are you trying to become like a studio writer, or would you prefer to be a writer-director? What exactly is your goal, would you say?
So I've directed in the past and I've executive produced lots of things. Yet I would like to increase my ability for more detailed writing as opposed to more technical business oriented writing.
Mhm.
So this is my goal currently. Yes, to be able to be a entry level screenwriter right now, just so that I can be able to draft out some content that I have in mind and just be able to organize it in a more cohesive way.
Cool. Awesome. And I'm sure as an executive producer, then there's certain areas of expertise that you would have that I just don't have as much knowledge into, having never really produced myself. I've directed a little bit, but mostly have been on the writing side. So great to have somebody with experience in like a very related but not quite exactly the same field.
Right. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Thanks, El. We're glad to have you. Let's check with Guardian Pair. I think he or she posted in the chat. Maybe can't talk. That's right. Okay, so Guardian Pair says, "Hi guys, good to be here. Sorry I can't talk. It's a lazy Sunday. People are deep in slumber. I'm starting out trying to get good. All genres, nothing hard set yet, as long as it intrigues me." Okay, great. So yeah, maybe you're just checking it out, just trying to see where your interest lies, trying to figure out what you're really drawn to. That's all great. I would say maybe if you're trying to figure out what your first project is, just look at what are your favorite movies, what are your favorite genres, and those are always things that are easier to gravitate towards. Like if you are obsessed with horror movies, you should probably write a horror movie, and the same with almost anything. So yeah, definitely over the holidays, just watch and read a lot, and just try to find like what draws your interest. What do you keep coming back to? Let's check with, I'm not quite sure how to say this one, Mong Culture.
How's it going? My name
Hi.
is Brian. Hi. Yeah. So the name is Brian. I started off writing poetry, short stories. Just trying to get more experience with writing, and then I ended up publishing a whole book of my poetry collection. I wrote a children's book, Christmas children's book, that published in English and Spanish. Afterwards, I did a graphic novel. So I teamed up with this illustrator who's done work with like Marvel and DC, like in the '90s, and yeah, I sent him a script on how I wanted a graphic novel to be, and he illustrated every panel, every page. And I liked it, so I'm working on two right now with word graphic novels, and I also want to move into writing screenplays. So like whether it's like short films or not, I just want to get into it. I've written a couple of short ones, but wanted to learn more and get to know how everything works.
Sure, of course. And yeah, there's comic scripts are not terribly different from screenplays as well. There's not really one really standard comic script format. You see, they look kind of all across the board, but if you build up skills in screenwriting, it becomes much easier to write comics too, because they're both very visual mediums, and just the format is somewhat similar.
Definitely.
Thanks, Brian. Nacho, want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Yeah. Hey, everyone. Yeah, I've been writing since high school. Wrote my first screenplay at age 15, and it was terrible, like Dan says. So yeah, I've been writing for a long time. I did take a break for a few years. My background is more like in film distribution development, so I haven't. I guess there was a period of time where I was doing like reading lots of other people's scripts and writing lots of like notes, and I just kind of, when I got home at the end of the day, I was like, it was really hard to switch gears to my own projects, and I just like didn't write anything at all for a few years. And I got back into it. I've written about 15 features now, and every project I learned something, and I feel like I learned a lot more working Connor compared to like like studying film undergrad. Like I took screenwriting classes, and I mean I depending on the school where you go, like um I guess this is a really practical approach. It's like step by step, like what's the first thing you need to do? Like this is kind of like, I mean, everyone needs to find their own process that like works for you individually, like your own personal writing process. But this is like a great starting point for anyone. It's a method that works. Like we've seen so many people come here, they've never written a script, and they knock out and script after script after script with these boot camps. I wrote something like 5 or 6 in the past year and a half or so, and like it works. I mean, the approach is different from what I used to do, where I would just sort of do a more. I felt like I had a pretty good handle on outlining, but when I got into Connor's approach, it's like really like pragmatic, right? Like you're working out. Sooner or later, you have to figure out like what's happening in every scene. And so what I found is by Connor's approach, where you're doing this, detailed outlining approach and detailed and like scene cards where you're figuring out what's happening in every scene. When you start the pages, it's like, for me, it was a freeing experience. I was able to write the whole draft like fast. I think the first one I did this way, I wrote in a week and a half, like after having like a really detailed outline. I just flew through the pages, and it was a first draft. So again, like keep in mind, the goal is just to sort of like get better at this skill by writing, and really need to write lots of scripts to get good. So this has been a lot of fun working with Connor. Yeah, hopefully this will help you in your journey as a writer as well.
Thanks, Nacho. And if you're having difficulty with any technical stuff during the class, like how do I send how do I find the text channel, how do I unmute myself, something like that, Nacho is usually able to help more than I am, because I'm going to be focused on the slides and the teaching and things like that. So feel free to tag him in a message in our chat channel if you need some help with something. Let's check in with Smash Guy.
Hi there. I've been writing for about a year. I'm looking to. I wrote one draft of a screenplay. I'm looking to write something more in animation, more in that kids and family genre. I'm looking to find a way to revise my current draft and only improve on it. Specifically, working on issues such as talking heads, or primarily just make a better product than what I currently have. And I've been to a few of these classes in the past, or weekly sessions for like fantasy or animation, and a lot of it has been extremely helpful. And I wanted to kind of just look into boot camp and kind of see where I could go with this.
Cool. Awesome. Okay. And you should, if you're interested in animation, of course, Toon Camp has animation classes, as well as other workshops and events coming up soon that are worth checking out. So are you planning on writing an animated script for this class?
Possibly. A lot of it, I want to see if there's anything I could pick up to refine what I currently have. But it wouldn't hurt to also kind of play around with another idea. It's, whatever I think piques my interest when we get started.
Sure. And yeah, if you have a completed project, it's always worth maybe doing a swap or a reading or something like that, just to get that feedback before moving in to revise it more heavily.
Mm-hmm.
But we have plenty of ways to do that on our server here and on our sister server, which is called Script Hive too. So plenty of ways to get feedback. Thanks, Smash Guy.
Thank you.
That's everyone. Let's get started with the slideshow. Right, that's everyone. Did I miss anyone? Looks like somebody just joined the server, Student Test 01. Do you want to unmute and introduce yourself?
Yes. So I just joined. I don't know what the discussion is about. So
Oh, we're just
um,
introducing ourselves, saying what your goals are, if you've written before, the kind of things you're
uh,
interested in writing, anything like that.
I'm a newbie to writing, so I'm a student. I'm just learning. Yeah.
Okay. Any particular genre that you want to write for the class, or any favorite filmmakers or something like that?
I'm pretty new. So basically, I'm more interested in writing for action movies.
Action.
So
Great. I love action. I write action too.
yeah, I'm just trying to understand the plot structure and how story develops. So those are the things that I'm still learning.
Cool. Cool. Well, you're in the right place. My specialties are action and horror.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's continue here. So, couple ground rules before we start. If you don't have an idea yet, you don't know what you want to write, maybe just pick something weird and different that you've always wanted to see, or some combination. Maybe you have like two favorite genres that never go together. You're like, I love Hallmark romance movies and I love zombie movies. What if we did a Hallmark zombie movie? Maybe that would be fun. Like, just pick something. Put the two things together that you haven't seen together before. It doesn't have to be incredibly original. We're just trying to pick something that'll get you excited and interested and able to finish this in the 8-week span of the class. So don't worry about making this a masterpiece, and get used to sharing your ideas and your work with me and with the other students at all stages, even the very early stages. It can be difficult to hear notes at these early stages, but less developed ideas just need more guidance and need more feedback. So just be prepared to be hearing feedback all the time. It doesn't mean you are commanded to make those changes or to do those things. I'm not going to like get on your case if you don't take the notes. Part of receiving notes as a screenwriter is understanding that you don't have to take all of them, and that the guidance and feedback, the feedback that you're getting, is intended to help you create the best possible story and best possible scripts. But really, it's up to you what that final product looks like. So even if you're getting notes and feedback that you're like, I don't agree with this at all, I think it's great as it is, part of the skills to learn here are how to receive feedback gracefully and how to say things like, oh, thank you, I'll see how I can work that in, or I'll see what I can do with that, or I appreciate the note, I'll see what, just something where you will internalize it and be able to soak on it and think about it for a while. But you're never gonna grade. You're not being like, I'm not gonna check to make sure you apply the notes that we give you or anything like that. You are largely on your own. The guidance and feedback is just to help you make the best possible story. After this week, so this week is fine. You can have your username be whatever you want. But if you've not already done so, and a few students just are already using real names, then that's fine. But after this class, if you're going to continue in a boot camp past the intro session, please change your username to your real name. If you really don't want to use your real name, you can use your middle name or a nickname or your dog's name or your brother's name or something like that. You can right-click on your name on the left side of the screen and press Change Nickname if you want to do that, or we can do it for you. But that you really only have to do that at the beginning of the week 1, so don't worry too much about that now. We recommend that you choose a brand new idea or a major rewrite, so something that you've gotten feedback on or will be able to get feedback on before the class, and you're going to be able to reimagine a little bit from the ground up, and you're not afraid to break it apart and rethink a lot of it. You want to probably avoid true stories, anthologies, or adaptations of any kind, because those are going to require more research, more time, and just be much more difficult to pull off in the 8 weeks of the class, especially if you're just learning and this is one of your first scripts. Just don't do a time travel script. Just trust me on this, and maybe you'll take that as a challenge and be like, I could do a time travel script, but then you'll regret it, because every time we see somebody take this as a challenge, they always regret it. So probably just don't do a time travel script. Probably also just don't do a historical, unless you really are taking on that extra challenge, or maybe you have a foundation in that period of time already, like you did your college thesis on it or something like that. Then in that case, it might be fine. Or maybe all you watch is historical movies, so maybe you really, really know a lot about them. But anything that's going to require a lot of research, like a historical or true event, or anything that you have any kind of fidelity to reality, like an autobiographical story of the story of how your father moved to America, or whatever it is, you're going to it's going to behoove you to choose something that does not require that extra time, care, and research within the time frame that we have. So probably don't pick one of those. Be really careful of scripts that involve clones, parallel universes, or anything that involves multiple copies of the same people. Body switching stories are almost impossible for people who are just starting out. And anything that involves extensive use of flashbacks, so like twisting interwoven timelines, or a lot of the montage thing doesn't really come up in the premise, but I always warn people against leaning too heavily on montages and flashbacks, just as you're conceiving of the project. So if it's something that really relies on both of those things or one of those things, maybe just be careful and pivot to a different idea if you have one. But this is a good time to just take a big swing and write something wacky and fun while building those fundamental skills that you're going to need moving forward. And you're going to learn how to organize and outline a story. So here's the overview of the whole process. Let me move out of the way here. We start with the logline, and we're going to be looking at loglines today, though you don't have to have a perfect one by the end of class or anything like that. You have the whole holiday to work on this and refine it more. But the logline is the one-sentence expression of what the movie's about. It's going to include protagonist, what are they trying to do, what's standing in the way, and maybe some sense of the scope or the time frame. We'll get much more into loglines in a bit. 2 is the sketchbook. So once you have a solid logline, you can move into the sketchbook phase where you'll open a blank Google document and you can just start filling out all of your ideas for characters, scenes, moments, lines of dialogue, set pieces, locations they go to, any research information that you have to do. It's just a place to keep all of your notes in the same spot. We don't want to have a bunch of different documents that have like little scattered notes here and there. So you can even make this now. I'm going to just skip ahead a few slides. And do I have a slide about that? Maybe not in this one, but I would recommend that you just start it now. So just go to Google Docs. And when we're sharing documents in the class, we're going to use either Google Docs or PDF files. So I would go to Google. If you have a Gmail or a YouTube account, you already have a Google Drive or Google Docs. So I would go there, just open a brand new blank document, and just call it Sketchbook, Screenplay Sketchbook, or if you have a name for your movie already, you can call it, the name of the movie, Sketchbook. And I would start, as we go through the class, then you can be doing more than just listening. You can be writing stuff down and starting to shape your idea as much as you can. If you have like a one-sentence expression of the idea, then you can write that at the top. Maybe if you have some ideas for titles, or if you have a few different ideas for different movies, just have a document open and I would be writing stuff down, as well as questions that you have, observations, and just anything else that you feel will help you follow along with the course and start learning more. So I would recommend I'm not going to make sure you do this or anything, but I would recommend you go to Google Docs, open up a new blank one, and title it Screenplay Sketchbook, and use that during class to be writing things down and be more than just listening, but already start to be thinking of how can I start to turn this idea into something that I can execute. So that's what the sketchbook is. It doesn't actually have to involve any sketches. We just kind of call it that. Next, we move into story beats. That's on our week 3 class. Story beats are the major events of the script in the order that they should happen in. You don't have to have it be perfect. You don't need to know every single scene, but we need to get the major things in place, meaning that we're going to have to really start studying structure. So we know what each of these moments are supposed to do. We know that the midpoint is not just the center of the story, it's also a moment that significantly raises the stakes, for instance. Or we know that the break from Act 1 to Act 2, the first act break, is going to be moving your character from a place of stasis and perhaps comfort into the new upside-down, topsy-turvy world of the second act. Things like this that we'll get much more into in the successive classes, but structure is a really, really important element of what we do here. So story beats are all about aligning the events of the story underneath their proper structural headings, and so you know what these moments are and why they're in those places. Next, we expand that into scene cards in the following week, which is going to be an expanded, blown-up version of that story beats outline into a full paragraph for every single scene, as well as the pages. You're going to mark out the pages that it will take place on. So you're making a really detailed plan for what's going to happen on every single page of the script. Finally, once all that's done, that's the first 4 weeks of the class, we go to pages, which is an industry term that means you actually go from outlining and pre-writing to you start the script and begin to stage scenes and write dialogue and all that kind of great stuff. So you don't actually need to get screenwriting software until week 4 if you don't want to. When we would recommend you try out Arc Studio Pro, which we have a link to that you can get a free trial there and use all of its great features. But you can really use whatever you want, but you should be using a screenwriting software. We should not be writing this in Word or something like that. So those are the 5 steps. Let me just pause for any questions so far before I keep going. But this is just like a big overview, a really zoomed out version of the entire course. Let me pause here and ask, does anyone have any questions so far on anything we've talked about?
I have one question. So do you recommend any specific software that we should be using for writing the screenplay?
Yeah, I would recommend Arc Studio Pro, and we have a link for a free trial there. And then if you want to try something else, Writer Duet is a great second option. We can link that to you in the chat if you want.
both of them are paid? Like we need to pay, or is there any free
There's a
ones that
free
we
there's a
can
free version of Writer Duet, which is, and there's a free version of both of them that's limited to 3 scripts, I think. And you still have access to almost all the features, but you can pay for a more advanced version that has unlimited scripts.
get? Okay, thank you.
Sure, but you would not need to spend any money on the software to if you're just starting and just want to get into the class. Your first 3 scripts are included in almost all of these. Nacho just posted a link to all of the screenwriting softwares that we are sharing in the chat. So if you mouse over the Classroom channel and click that small white word bubble that says Open Chat, then you should be able to see where links to all of the above and also links to get those free trials. Other questions? All right, if there's no more questions, we'll continue. So, if you're doing a rewrite, you will have a slightly different process that we won't be fully going into right now or fully expanding on at the moment. But the rewrite looks a little bit like this. You're going to want to, instead of starting with Sketchbook, you'll start with a re-outline, which is going to be an outline that reflects the version of the script that you have. Then you're going to want to get notes and collect all of those into what we call the notes document. And then you're going to sort of mash those together to create the revision guide, which is going to be like a roadmap that's going to take you from beginning to end of this new draft. So you can bring a rewrite to the class. This is a little bit more geared to writing something brand new. But if you're willing to make major changes and to totally break apart a script that you've had before, and you are willing to get feedback on it outside of the course, because keeping in mind I'm not going to be able to read every script and give feedback on it before the class starts, then you could definitely bring a rewrite to the feature bootcamp. So, script finished in 8 weeks. Will this draft be good? No. And let's move beyond the idea that any draft has to be good, especially when you're just learning. It doesn't really matter if it's good or not. You have to think of these as bricks in the road. And you can't stop and think way too much over whether or not any brick is a masterpiece of a brick. You have a road to build. So that's why I like to present it and think about it here, and why I suggest to start with something that you're not as attached to, that you're okay with messing up or doing a really bad job with. Give yourself permission to do a not very good job, because you're not going to start out good at this. Nobody starts out good at this. We are screenwriters because we have good ideas and we believe in them, but to become a working screenwriter, meaning you want to actually write studio movies in the US system or maybe the UK, you do have to untether yourself from your ideas to some extent. And one of the big skills to work on, the main 3 things you have to do to learn to be a screenwriter: 1, read a lot. You absolutely must read a lot. There's no skipping that step. 2, write a lot. And 3, move on. You need to build the skill of moving on, because even if you spend, months or perhaps years setting up a script and getting it to the highest possible levels, it can still fall apart at almost any time, which I'm sure those of you who have worked in producing or distribution or these things like this have seen this happen. They can fall apart at any stage. So you need to build the skill of being able to move on. And even in the best case scenario, your idea will be bought and developed, and you'll get lots of notes and revisions on it, and then rewritten, and then you might get fired off your movie, and then it'll get directed, and then it'll get reshot, and then it'll get edited. And after all of that, will it even look like your original script? Maybe not, and you have to get used to that idea. Unless you're directing yourself, in which case you'll have much more control, but it will also just be a whole different set of skills and responsibilities that you have to worry about. If you're trying to be a studio writer, you have to realize that you're creating a blueprint for a multi-million-dollar company, and that when you have a multi-million-dollar company that's going to employ more than 100 people and move millions of dollars around, then people are going to want to have more control over it. And that money comes from somewhere, and the people who are responsible for that money have a say. Everyone has a say if they are, contributing something to the project. So you might have multiple bosses. You might have 3 to 5 people giving you notes on a script. It may not really resemble what you originally intended by the end. You have to learn to work with people and to take even bad, dumb notes and make the best possible product that you can. So your goal is really not to write one amazing thing, especially in this course. It's to become a generator of unlimited ideas, and to develop the skills necessary to execute them consistently on this quick time frame of 8 to 12 weeks and with a high level of quality. We're not trying to coach you into writing a great script or a script that will go anywhere or sell or get you meetings or lots of money or managers and agents. This takes many, many years to get to that level. You're trying to become a generator of unlimited ideas. So release yourself from certain expectations and just realize this is work. This takes a long time. Nobody starts out good at it. You should think of this not as digging for gold, but you're running laps at the gym. So, I probably won't go through this whole thing just because this is one of our bigger slideshows and we have plenty of things to get through. So I'll probably just highlight one or two of these sort of myths and assumptions about this. The first one is that you need a degree or film school, internship, classes, workshops, or nepotism of some kind in order to get started doing this. You don't need any of those things. You don't even need classes like this. You can learn all you need to learn by reading scripts, writing scripts, and moving on. Meaning pro work. You should be reading pro scripts, at least one every single week. Ideally 3 a week, and we'll be checking in every class asking, what scripts did you read recently? What did you notice? What did you like? There's not right or wrong answers. It's not like a test. We're just asking you to read actively and to pay attention and to take notes and to read with an eye for improvement. So it's not all networking. It's not all nepotism. Those things do help significantly, and if you have a family member who's in the business, then you will have a leg up, and if you have maybe if you go to film school, you'll make certain connections you would not have made otherwise. But none of those things are actually requirements to start to be a screenwriter. You don't need to go to college to do this. Nobody's going to ask for your degree. Certain other things. Anything else I want to highlight on here? I mean, I think we understand I would hope that we understand that bad movies are not always written by bad writers, I guess I would say. So you can look at anything that's come out in a major theater and say, that was total crap, I could do better than that. That writer must be terrible. But chances are that is a writer at the absolute top of their game. Remember that they hire multiple writers on these things. The writers are not in charge of big studio movies for the most part. They are following the orders of multiple network execs who are ultimately the ones in control. They can change it as much as they want. The writer is not the one responsible for how it ultimately ends up. They are a big part of it, or they can like steer the ship a little bit, but they ultimately are not the ones at the wheel. So remember that if you're reading scripts by pro writers, then there's something to learn from them, even if you didn't like the result all that much. Professional work is always worth studying and paying attention to, even if you're like, well, the movie turned out bad, but something was right. Some spark here, there was some seed of something amazing that got this to be made. So try to have respect for the people that do this professionally and to learn as much as you can from them. Anything else on here that I want to highlight? Not really. I think that's the basics. Let's move on to our next slide here. I don't have to go through all these either. These are just the doom and gloom realities of this. It's saying, there's a high cost of living in LA. It's frustrating and time consuming to do this. It takes a huge commitment of time and brain power. You have a higher chance of joining Major League Baseball than becoming a paid feature writer. But once you know that, if you know those things and you still want to do it, then you're in the right spot, because you have to love it, and you have to really, 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 really love it in order to be able to do this, because if you don't, then there's no, you're competing with everyone who does. You're competing with everyone who wakes up at 4 a.m. to mark out where are the act breaks in their favorite TV show, and to get those pages in day after day after day, and to read 3 blacklist scripts a week, and to, you don't have to do those things, but you're competing with the people that are, and there are not unlimited slots. So here's how to be a feature writer in really kind of reductive steps. I won't spend way too long on this, but number 1 step is just get really good at writing movies. Step number 2 is go back and actually do step number 1, because almost everybody thinks that they're ready before they really are ready. This takes years of doing this. Step 3 is going to be to put together a portfolio of 3 to 5 really undeniably incredible scripts. I was like writing samples mostly. And then you're going to want to get repped by a manager. Nowadays, manager usually comes first. You're going to want to enter contests and fellowships, network as much as you can, so probably move to Los Angeles and be in LA will help you a lot. And you're going to want to maybe query, perhaps, although querying usually won't work unless you have really high contest placements or something like that. Very few managers are actually looking seriously at queries nowadays. Some of them still do occasionally, but like it's almost always easier to query if you have a major accomplishment for that script already. After that, you're going to work with that manager to either get a writing assignment, possibly pitching on multiple open writing assignments that are going to come up during your general meetings, or perhaps work with your rep to develop a script that maybe the one they signed you off of, or maybe more often a brand new one that they're going to pick from all of your ideas, or maybe an idea that they have. As a screenwriter, as a pro Hollywood screenwriter, you have to get used to working on other people's ideas. And then you're going to want to develop that script with them until they're ready to take it out, which means send it to their network of contacts and get you a bunch of meetings. You're going to want to then take a bunch of general meetings, which are going to be like, they like the script, they don't want to make it, but they just want to meet with you. I've done 2 rounds of these, one in 2017 and one in early 2020. So you can do this multiple times, the rounds of general meetings. At which point you might start making contacts at these companies, and you can check in with them and follow up with them maybe. And they are sometimes open to you sending them scripts later. Not always, but sometimes they are. And then you're going to do the preceding steps about 500 times as various scripts fall apart or don't work out. You're going to use your rep's guidance as much as you can to try to position yourself by writing the strongest, most sellable possible project and just get something off the ground. And then finally you will get something sold or produced, join the Writers Guild, and, party. But the work doesn't end there. You can always get dropped by your reps. You can always have all your projects fall apart. Your rep might quit the business and you have to start over. Like, you have to prove yourself and break in multiple times. Sometimes I would know. I've done it 3 times by now. So you sort of never stop having to until you hit a certain threshold, you will constantly have to it's a very uphill struggle. It's like Sisyphus pushing the boulder up the mountain. It keeps rolling back down. You're going to be doing that for a while. So settle in for the long haul. And if you want to write movies professionally, settle in for a years-long journey. Any questions on just the career before we move on?
I have a question about one of the suggestions that you mentioned about reading screenplays, right?
Mhm.
So I was thinking about it just a few days ago. So um, if you try to better grasp the idea, like what the genesis of the idea and how they develop the story, so do you recommend watching the movie and reading the script, or reading the script or watching the movie? So basically they can go hand in hand. So if you read the script, then you can understand how they made that script into a movie, or the other way around. Like if you watch the movie and then read the script, you can also translate back what was the actual form. Even though they presented it in one way, they actually, what are the details that they wrote. So which one would be more beneficial to grasp the looking at the examples and try to develop the craft? Thank
Sure.
you.
Good question. I think you should do both. But the priority should be reading scripts before you've watched the movie, or scripts that have not been made, because that's the closest thing to what we're going to be making. Is we're writing speculative scripts, specs as they're called. So you should definitely focus on trying to be able to picture the action on the page without having the reference of what that would look like, or who that character would be cast as, or what actors would be playing them, or those things. You should try to get really used to reading scripts without that, but you should also be able to do both. Like, I recommend read the script, then watch the movie. Sometimes you should read the movie, then watch the script. I would do a combination of them, but primarily you're going to be reading, and you don't need to watch them, and maybe even read things that haven't been made. There's plenty of those on the lists that we have. The blacklist is going to be your best place to look for scripts to read. Some of them have been made, some of them haven't been made, but the majority of scripts on there's something worth learning in all of them, and they were all written as specs. They're not shooting scripts. They're not more advanced versions of the document that we'll be making. So we have a link to all of those scripts that we can leave in the chat, so you can definitely find enough to read 3 of them every week.
Thank you. Thank you
Sure.
very much.
Thank you for the question. There's the link. It's already been posted in the chat. So if you scroll up in the chat just a little bit, it says blacklist, and you can click that link there and get access to all of those scripts. I think we had another question. Go ahead.
Yeah, I got a question real quick. So you said something about like moving to LA is probably like one of the greatest things you can for your career. I currently live in Texas, and I know there's like a bunch of like in San Antonio is like fairly small compared to LA and other stuff, but then there's Austin too, who has a lot of filming done there too. Wanted to kind of get your thoughts, cities or other cities that could like visit besides LA, if LA is too far or too expensive for them to get there.
Sure. So yeah, Texas is not a bad place to be, especially because they have a more significant film industry there, and in Georgia and in New York. So like Atlanta, New York, Austin, and LA are kind of like the big film cities in the US. You don't have to move to LA right away. It's not going to be the best thing you can do instantly, and you can build your skills and you can learn to read and write from anywhere. So I would spend a couple years getting really good at writing before you move to LA, because I think you need to move to LA for the networking. But if you're networking without a great script to show people, you're not going to do a very good job at networking. Does that make sense? So like, you want to have something worth sharing first. and then move here, because once you have something worth sharing and you are here, you can make more opportunities for yourself. And like if you meet a producer at a party or something and they think your idea sounds awesome, you can actually have that script for them and it will actually be awesome. And that's how you start a career, rather than you meet them and you tell them your idea and they're like, well, that sounds cool, let me know when you write it, I guess. So yeah, move here when you're ready and when you've built your skills significantly and you have a body of work to start to share.
Appreciate the answer.
Sure. But you'll be able to meet plenty of people who are doing the same stuff in Texas too. So yeah, definitely check out Austin specifically for its filmmaking scene. Maybe try getting on set, maybe even student films or maybe like local filmmakers. You can get experience and you can meet people in your local community before you worry about moving here. But when it comes to writing, just focus on the skill and the craft first before you think about moving.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Sure, great question. Anyone else? Okay, let's keep going. I won't do this whole slide. We know writing movies is hard. It's hard to get good feedback. It's hard, especially because, people who are willing to give you feedback are not always going to be experts, and the experts usually charge a lot of money, things like that. So some good reasons to write a movie. Maybe the number one reason is you want to be a pro screenwriter. Number two might be you just want to be more skilled at the craft for fun or for personal enjoyment reasons. Maybe you want to direct the movie yourself. But those are kind of the massive reasons here. It's very uncommon and unlikely for someone to write just one single movie then have it get made. In fact, I'm not sure if that's happened. So don't worry too much about whether any individual brick is a masterpiece or even particularly good. You have a whole road to build and you just need to start laying them down. Okay, here's my sketchbook slide. So if you have not already done this, go to Google Docs and open up your new document, make your sketchbook, call it title of the movie sketchbook, and at the top you're going to want to write these things down. One is just title, so if you have a title, write that down. If not, say just title, question mark, I guess. Second is genre, so you should hopefully have an idea of what the genre would be. And try not to pick a bunch of things. You're just going to want to combine two genres at most. If something is an action, western, comedy, horror, romance, then it starts to just sound like meaningless soup. So try to pick just two things at most. And last, comps, which stands for comparables. Those are going to be other movies that are sort of like yours, so you can pitch it as, Snakes on a Plane meets Die Hard, or whatever it is. It's going to be one movie meets another movie in terms of, you can think of it maybe like the world or the setting of the first one with the style or the approach of the second one. There's not actually really an exact science to it, but you're going to want to be able to pick comps. You can have list out a bunch of ideas for comps, but ultimately you're going to want to settle on two. Try not to pick way too many comps. But yeah, put that at the top of your documents now. Title, genre, logline, and comps. So be filling out the sketchbook with ideas as you develop this today. In about 10 to 15 minutes, we're going to share ideas. If you have even if it's only a little shred of a seed of an idea, then we're going to be able to give you some suggestions and help you expand that out, or maybe help you find a direction to take that in. And with the intention of you working on the logline over the holidays and getting it into shape before this program starts on January 8th. Any questions on this? I'll make sure to check the text chat too. Okay. I would make your sketchbooks. Let's talk log lines, and if you think you have a good idea of what your log line will be, maybe write it out now or as we're talking about these, and maybe you can just check out these next couple slides and think of how to change and refine that a little bit before you share it. But when we go into log lines and when we are sharing ideas, you should be ready to unmute and to read your log line out loud and answer questions and explain a bit about the idea. I would be prepared to hear that this idea isn't really working at the moment. It's not to say, if you hear that, it's not to say you should give up or this can't possibly ever work, but just be prepared to hear feedback, even at these early stages. Be prepared to hear, I can't quite see the movie. When we say, I can see the movie, that's a developmental note, which means I can envision or I can picture what's going to be happening in the movie, and especially what's going to be going on in the second act. It's a good sign. You want the feedback to be, I can see the movie. If it might be there's some cool elements here, but I can't quite see the movie. That might mean that we just need to get more concrete and specific and lay out more clearly what we're going to be watching someone do in the story. So just be prepared to hear some notes on this idea and get used to hearing notes, like I keep saying. And also just be prepared to speak out loud. Screenwriting is a very social job. You will need to be good in a room is the term that they use, meaning you are quick on your feet and you're clever and you can ask the right questions and you can incisively get to the heart of an issue. You can diagnose problems with other people's scripts, especially if you want to write for TV, which we'll talk about that more in the TV course, which is going to be Fridays from 6 to 8. But even when you're writing features, it is a very social. This is not like writing novels or poetry, which you can do by yourself, largely at home. This is an extremely social form of writing. And your personality really matters here. Your ability to sell something in the room really matters, and you should take these things into account. Maybe take a public speaking course or theater course or improv course or these things which can help you be quick on your feet and well-spoken in a room and not cracking under pressure. And the ability to articulate is so important. So if we'll sometimes hear these things like somebody will say, oh, I have this great idea here, I'm just not very good at explaining it. It's a little bit like saying, I want to be, like, I'm a good runner, I'm just not very fast. It's like the job is articulating it. So you need to learn to articulate well and to explain your ideas very clearly and in such a way that somebody else can understand them. And it's okay if they have some questions or they're not quite clear on everything, but just be ready to answer those questions as succinctly as you can. So let's look at loglines. What's a logline? It's the story's central conflict distilled into a sentence. It basically tells you what is the movie. I mean, in addition to the title and genre, this is the movie, or this is the quick version of explaining what the movie is. It implies a kind of a visual action. So what we're going to be watching people do. What is the inciting incident? That's the event that kicks off the story. Who's the protagonist, meaning the central main character that we're focusing on and following and really investing in that person's central journey. Even if you have a lot of characters, almost every single story will still have a central protagonist, even ensembles. Two-handers are kind of the one exception to this, but I would not recommend writing a two-hander if you're just starting. That would be like some buddy cop movies, for instance, and some romance stories are sort of two-handers where they have two protagonists of completely equal, even weight. Really tricky to write. You probably want to pick a very protagonist-driven story, which the majority of stories are, thankfully, in the Western style. So the protagonist, we want to know what they want, what's in their way, and a sense of what happens if they fail. So the stakes or the ticking clock. We need to, rescue the president before they blow up the White House, or we need to hold off the zombies until morning because they will go away when the sun comes up. Or I need to, get a date before I ship off to the military. Something like that, which is just implying a sense of urgency, is really useful for features. If it feels like it's lacking urgency and it's a much smaller story with lower stakes, it's going to start to feel like maybe this should be a short story or a one-act play or something like that, which is not to say you can't write dramas or even Slice of Life is the one place where we kind of run into some trouble because Slice of Life kind of doesn't really follow almost any of the rules or the guidelines that we're talking about here. So I can't help you much with Slice of Life, but almost any other genre, we should have a very clear sense of main character, what do they want, what's in their way, what happens if they fail. So let's look at a template for this. You can use this if you're not sure what else to use, and this is good to start with, even if you're going to change it a little bit afterwards. It's going to be when or after the inciting incident, so the thing that kicks the story off, an adjective protagonist must conflict before or in order to stakes or ticking clock. Ticking clock being that element that I mentioned that adds urgency. Like a bunch of kids need to clean up the house before mom and dad get home and find out that they had a crazy party. That would be a ticking clock. And also the stakes would be their parents are going to be mad at them if they fail, right? So different genres have different levels of stakes. Not everything needs to be life and death. If you're writing comedy, the worst thing that could possibly happen might be the couple breaks up or the friends have a fight or something like that. If you're writing horror or action, it should be life and death, or else it won't feel like a very effective horror. It won't be very scary as a horror. It won't be very tense as action. That's not like 100% always true. There are counterexamples to these things, but generally with a feature, we're trying to push the stakes as high as they make sense to be for our genre. So I would write down this formula if you have your sketchbook open. When/after inciting incident, an adjective protagonist must conflict before or in order to stakes or ticking clock. And start thinking in these terms. Maybe try to take what you have and start to write it out in these terms. I'm going to talk about what these things mean a little bit more, so you guys should be writing and working as I'm doing that, so that when we are ready to share in about 10 minutes, then you can have already started to, phrase it in terms that will be more helpful to you as a logline. Any questions on this before I go more into it? I'm going to go a little bit more into the purpose of loglines and some things to pay attention to in loglines. But does anyone have any initial questions before I get into that? Okay, no questions. So let me just point out a couple things. One, choose your adjective carefully and the way you describe your protagonist carefully. It should feel like this is the right person for this story, but you know that you can describe a person in several different terms, right? If somebody is you might describe her as a timid tax collector or a timid meter maid, but maybe the story isn't really about her job, it's more about her kids. So you might describe her as, you know, a brand new mother, for instance. And those are two ways of describing the same person, but one of them is more relevant for the story that you're telling. So you want to choose that adjective carefully. The adjective is usually going to be something. Sorry, I need to slow down and enunciate. That first adjective is going to be something that is relevant for the character and makes them feel like the right person for the story. So it might be a trait that they're struggling with. It might be something that a particular tactic that they use in order to accomplish their goals, right? Like think of Monk, the detective from the TV show. We've seen a million detective shows, but what's his thing? Oh, he has obsessive compulsive disorder. So that's the particular like tactic and also to some extent limitation that is going to be influencing how he goes about solving his goals and accomplishing his quests, his case of the week in every episode of that show. So we've picked that. We have to pick that adjective carefully and make it feel like relevant to the thing that we're about to watch. So don't just choose it randomly, and probably don't just choose the first thing that comes to your head for that kind of person. If you say like a determined detective needs to solve a crime, then it's going to be like, well, we expect a detective to be determined, so that doesn't really tell us very much about them. So you can that might be a sign that you need to make your character more specific and make a more concrete, stronger choice. Or it might be just that you need to find a different way to describe that person, or find something that links them to the case that they're in. It's like, I don't know, they're investigating a serial killer that murdered somebody with a mop, and your main character used to be a janitor, right? Okay, something like that, an ex-janitor detective. You might see how that could link them to that story in some way. That's a dumb example, but hopefully you see what I mean. Like we have your police are chasing a bootlegger while your main character is an alcoholic detective. Okay, I can get the fact that that's going to be something he's struggling with and making his journey more difficult, and also something that links him directly to the fact that he's pursuing a bootlegger. He has like a personal investment in this particular case. So try to pick that adjective and description of that main character very carefully. Other things. So what's the logline for? It's going to persuade people to read the script, because if you have a good logline, there's a higher chance that it's a better script. Logline is a good barometer for the quality of the script, so we expect a poor logline to be not that well written, just for the most part, so someone's more likely to read it if the logline's great. It also makes it easier for people to remember and discuss your script, and it's useful for sharing pages with fellow writers, because you can kind of remind us what's supposed to be happening and what the general crux of the narrative is. In terms of writing, this is going to serve as a sort of compass for you during the outlining and writing process to really keep yourself on track and to make sure that you're not drifting too far from your original intentions. You can look back to the logline to make sure that you are capitalizing on the central premise and that you are supporting and amplifying and advancing that central premise throughout, especially the middle of your story, but all throughout the narrative. And this is also going to give you a head start on outlining because of our template that we use. We have the inciting incident. We have the section that describes the adjective protagonist is going to be like what we need to set up in the first 10 pages. We know that the stakes or ticking clock is going to be something that comes into play during that all is lost moment towards that break into that third act. So just by having a really strong logline, you'll already have some of the key events of your story in place before you even begin. So a good logline gives your reader a head start, or gives you a head start on outlining. Here's well, I won't go into this now. Let's come back to this. I just kind of touched on this, but I don't want to give way too much information at the beginning yet. Maybe let's look at some good loglines. Do we have those on here? I could show you some of mine. Yeah, I don't think we have just like a big list of loglines on this. We do in the chat, but let's look at some of the loglines for some of my features, and these are going to be the ones that I've had the most success with. And not every one you can see is going to follow that exact template of when or after inciting incident, an adjective protagonist must conflict before stakes. But I always do start with that, and I sort of adjust it from there as certain elements of that become implicit in the sentence itself. So feel free to check these out. And Nacho, thank you, Nacho, in the chat, just linked us a bunch of log lines and a bunch of examples and some tips in writing these. So while you all are working on this, we're going to share in 5 minutes now. So at the 20-minute mark, get ready to post and share whatever you've got, even if it's just a little bit, or if you're juggling between multiple ideas and trying to figure out which one you want to go with. You can list us out maybe 2 or 3 of your favorites, and we can help you choose. Even if you don't write something out or don't have something ready to share, you can still maybe just explain what kind of movie you want to make, and we can give you some suggestions maybe of things to read or anything like that. Okay, so here's my log lines over here on the left side of your screen. Peter and the Wolves was the script that I broke in with in 2017 that placed in Launchpad Top 10 and Nickel Fellowship quarterfinals, got me signed for the first time with my first manager, and got me a round of meetings all over Hollywood. The Tube was my 2019 Nickel semifinalist script that I got a bunch of read requests and meetings off of, but I didn't actually set up these scripts at any production company. Hintline was my 2020 script that is set up with DJ2 Productions, the producers of the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise. And The Knowledge is my 2021 script that was set up briefly, though it's no longer set up, with a major production company in town as well. That's sort of an action car chase, kind of Guy Ritchie vibe script. So feel free to look at these log lines here and just maybe get inspired by these. I can tell you the genres that I really look at, or that I really specialize in, are going to be action. So The Knowledge is an action film. Hintline is a thriller with a dark comedy kind of sensibility to it. The Tube is a surrealist dark comedy, and Peter and the Wolves is a historical horror thriller. So that's sort of what I do, and I'm going to be able to give you guys the best feedback on things in my genres, horror, action, and thriller. If you're writing outside of my genres, I can still help you. I've read a trillion scripts and have done this for a long time, so don't feel like you have to do those things. You should do what you're excited about and what you want to do. But let's ask, do we have any last questions on loglines before we start to share some of our ideas? Or questions on any of these, if you guys have any. We have a message in the chat from Amber that says, I'd like to read The Tube. Sure, Amber, I'll send it to you after class if you want. It's really weird. Any other questions? So we're hearing some background sound from Robert's mic. If you wouldn't mind just clicking the mute button in the bottom left-hand corner of your Discord screen. Thank you. Okay, if there's no more questions, let's share and start to discuss. So feel free in the chat, post what you've got, even if you've got just a broken, half-formed sentence or idea. Be ready to hear feedback, of course. But let's share, and let's bring up the template again, so you can just look at this. When or after inciting incident, an adjective protagonist must conflict or else stakes is kind of the basics of this. But feel free to share what you want. Let's take a look. Do we still have Stream Chat working? No, just a bunch of spam comments from our YouTube. Great. Okay. All right, so feel free in the chat. You can mouse over the classroom channel and click that small white word bubble that says open chat. And you can post in there and get that first round of feedback from me and comments from the rest of the class if you want. I'll give you guys a few minutes for this. Thank you, Brian. We're going to wait until a few of these are posted, so we'll give you a little time, and then once we have 2 or 3 of them, then I'll start with the feedback, and while we're doing that, you can feel free to add yours into the queue. We're not guaranteed to get to everybody, but we'll get to as many as we can. I'll give it about 1 minute, and then I'll start calling on these. Thank you, Amber.
Joel says the stream audio is very quiet. You may want to just adjust a little.
Me? Sure, I can do that. Is this better? I turned it up by like a whole decibel. Okay, I've adjusted that. And if you need to, by the way, adjust anyone's volume, you can right-click on their avatar on the left part of the Discord window, and you'll find a bar at the bottom. You can slide that bubble up to the right to turn it up, or to the left to turn it down. Thank you, 99 Square, and thank you, Smash Guy. Okay, so looks like we've got, make sure to include your title and genre if you can, please. But we've got a couple that have been posted we're ready to start looking at. Yeah, it can just be untitled if you're not sure. We're just going to go down the list, so we'll start with Brian. Is this a comedy, Brian?
Yeah, I'd say it's like a horror comedy or a mystery comedy, something like that. I have it leaning towards more comedy than like horror.
Yeah, this sounds like a comedy premise to me. Okay, and do you have a title yet, or is it still untitled?
I don't know. I mean, I've been working with some like for the past, and it's like, I was thinking like, Ghost for Cash LLC or something. You know, just because they're like, whole intentions to like rob places. You know, they're looking for cash. You know, but
what was it? Ghost for Cash? Was that the name?
Yeah.
Ghost. Is it like a 4? Like, Ghost for Cash. Call now. 1-800. Ghost for Cash.
Yeah,
okay,
exactly.
We'll just call it Ghost for Cash for now.
Yeah, but yeah, it's still I'm still working on the title, but yeah, it's leaning towards like comedy.
Okay, we'll say horror comedy then, because
yeah,
going into a haunted house. Sure. All right, can you read the logline out for us, please?
Oh yeah. Let me scroll up. A group of 4 con artists go around pretending they are paranormal hunters in order to rob the places and make a quick buck. Until one night, they actually do run into a haunted house to rely on their con skills in order to survive the night.
All right. Thanks for this. So, a couple things. The first thing is that a group of people is not really a protagonist, and we really have to find a protagonist. So maybe be thinking, adjective, protagonist, something that makes this particularly relevant for this main character. Like, is the main character... maybe be thinking what's motivating them specifically, or what makes this a relevant journey to them. Like, is this the one that is your hero the one that thinks that they should stop conning people and this is like his last job and he's out after this, or is he the one that's trying to keep all his friends in the group and they're the ones who are trying to leave? Maybe just be thinking a little bit in terms of what would be the journey of my main character. So you don't have to have the answer at the moment. Go ahead.
So just focus on one person instead of a group.
Yeah, you can say an adjective protagonist and his group of con artist friends or something like that, but we really need to know who the main character is in the logline. You don't have to have the answer now, but just be thinking of that. So I like the idea they pretend they're paranormal hunters to go around and rob people until they run into a haunted house. The part that I'm tripping on is they have to rely on their con skills to survive the night. Are they conning the ghosts?
So they're conning the people, like, in a way that, like, probably go around the houses, make it seem like it's haunted for the people to call them, and they come in and they just kind of like, oh, the ghost stole your watch or something, but they actually pocketed the watch or pocketed the cash or something like that. They go in to rob the place and then they leave, and because they're the ones pretending it's haunted or making it seem like it's haunted, as they leave, it stops. So that's how they're remaining in business.
But so they don't really have to rely on their con skills to survive the night, it doesn't sound like.
No, because they have on in the people, but then they run into a haunted house that's actually haunted.
So then they leave, right?
Somehow they're stuck. I don't know. It's still working, it's just a work in progress. But I'm thinking they're
That's okay.
stuck there. They can't leave, and they have to rely on their own skills. Like, let's say, like, 1 or 2 probably were in jail, and they like acquired some set of skills there. They're helping them survive the night with a haunted house or a group of ghosts, something like that.
But when you say con, do you mean they're ex-cons like they're ex-convicts, or do you mean con as in confidence, like they're tricking, like con when you're talking about con artists are people who they're going to trick people into giving them their money, right?
Exactly. So they're conning people for their money.
Right, but so after the ghosts show up, I can't see how that's a relevant skill anymore, because most people would be like, ghost, I'm gonna run away now. Unless the ghost himself could be tricked or could be conned. Is that the direction you're kind of going in?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. No, I was kind of when I wrote that, I was kind of thinking like, you know how like sometimes for like thieves or burglars, though they've done like, you know, it's a bad thing later on in life, those skills kind of help them out to get out of situations, you know,
Sure.
for like a good thing. So I was thinking something like that, like there's got to be some kind of skills like where they can like, yeah, I don't know, maybe find a way to. I still got to think about that one.
Yeah, maybe think about how can the particular skills that you've chosen, how can that actually be something that can get them out of the situation? Normally, we wouldn't really expect you to be able to con a ghost, but maybe in your world you can. Like maybe it's the ghost of I have no idea actually. Now that I start to talk, but
like a car salesman or something.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. There you go. That's kind of funny. Or it's like a super old, decrepit ghost. That's very, you know, how older people are sometimes easier to trick or to you know, con artists target them specifically. So maybe they're like, oh, now we have to like use our skills against this old ghost. Or maybe there's people that's keeping them there and they need to use their con skills against the people more than the ghost themselves. But maybe just be thinking like, because right now I can't quite see the movie. I can see up until the ghosts show up, and then I'm like, wait, but then they're just running away. Like a con artist would just run away at that point, unless there's some way that their skills could actually get them out of this situation. So it's a good. Yeah. You have some good elements here, definitely, and I want to see. I'm curious as to how those skills could apply. I think you just need to make it clearer how they do apply in the logline.
Okay, you got it.
Cool. So those two major things. Everything else, you're pretty much good. I mean, this is like a good comedy premise and could be a very high concept idea. Just give us a really great main character with some relevant trait to this that we can sort of start to see their journey implied in the logline. You don't need to spell out the whole internal journey. You don't need to say, and he learns the theme that stealing is wrong. But maybe you could sort of imply that, you know, like a repentant con artist or a reluctant con artist or something like that. They're being tested, and now they have to sort of think, do I want to be a con artist for the rest of my life or not? We want to sort of suggest the trajectory that the character's taking. You don't have to know it super well. The situation is the most important thing. So focus on really concrete, clear main character, and show us how these skills are going to be relevant for getting them out of this problem.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. Highlight how skills will be relevant to solving problem. Okay. All right. Let's do more. We have plenty more to choose from, it looks like. Thank you for sharing these, guys. And also check the chat, because as we're going through these, many people will give you ideas, so you can always scroll back up and you might see some suggestions here. Nacho says maybe the con man needs to con the ghost to find out where they hid the treasure or something when the ghost was alive. That could work. That could make sense. So yeah, feel free to weigh in on these in the chat, and everybody should make sure to check it and scroll up and see what suggestions you've been given. All right, let's look at the next one. We have Amber with drama. Go ahead and why don't you tell us about this one?
Hello. It's untitled as of right now. It's the the logline is: a tenacious filmmaker is ready to move forward on her film until she needs permission to use her father's likeness. A heavy task considering they haven't spoken in 15 years, and she would love to keep it that way.
And she would love to keep it that way. Okay. Cool. Thanks for this. Let me make sure I understand. So drama, and we'll just call it untitled.
Yeah.
A tenacious filmmaker is ready to move forward on her film. Let me move out of the way of the screen. Is ready to move forward on her film until she's told she needs permission to use her father's likeness. You mean like his life rights?
Yeah.
Okay. So likeness would be for like a cartoon or for like a video game or something like that. Normally, if you're trying to get the rights to somebody's life story, then we call out life rights in terms of screenwriting. Okay. But I think I see what you mean. So she wants to make a movie about his life?
Yes.
Okay. A heavy task considering they haven't spoken in 15 years and she would love to keep it that way. Okay, great. So they're estranged.
Yes.
And her goal is... Well, it says she'd love to keep it that way, but I assume she has to confront him in order to make this happen.
And
right?
This means she has to confront him.
Right. Okay. So let's rephrase things a little bit. So we'll find what is the inciting incident of the film. Maybe we can think of like is it like her script getting greenlit? Is that the inciting incident, or like what event would you think kicks this off? It's okay if you don't know. You can say I'm not sure if you don't know.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I feel like it would be the film getting greenlit.
Okay.
With the fiat that we just need that piece of paper signed. It's like,
so let me ask this: is it a film about her life, or is it a film about her father's life? Because a film about her father's life would definitely include her in it, right?
Yes. Well, yes. So in the film, as you get into it, you find out there's a reason why she's not in it as much.
Okay.
Or wouldn't be in it.
But so I'm guessing. So let me just write out a sample. You don't have to use any of these things, but let me just give you an example of what this might look like. So it might say something like, when her provocative, new autobiographical. When her provocative. Can I not spell that word? Autobiographical film is greenlit. A tenacious filmmaker must reconnect with her estranged father framing a whole movie around convincing someone to do something is a little bit tricky. I think that it makes a little more sense in a drama than it does in other genres, definitely. It helps, though, if we can imply the movie is going to be more than just people talking in rooms. So, like, does she go to stay with him? Does she go to, like, visit him? Or, like, do they go on a trip together? Can you help us out with, like, what are we watching people do besides just sit around and talk?
Right. So she's going to visit him, and it would be during a what's the word I'm looking for? A family reunion.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Okay, so must reconnect with her estranged father, and to convince him to give over his life rights, something like that. I think that if must reconnect is a nice way to put that. I'm not sure. Like, the reunion will be a nice plot element. I'm not sure we definitely need to include that in the logline, unless that's going to be a big part of the story. Like, all the families here and they're all together.
Yeah.
If it is, though, that might be something you'll include. So I would think of phrasing it in one sentence, a little bit more like this. Go ahead.
And this is like super new right now. It's as far as an idea. There are a lot of elements that may or may not end up in this.
Sure.
Because the earlier idea was that she was convinced to come by a sister to see him before he was dying. There's a lot of things. So
okay.
So I'm still working on it, but this is kind of the latest iteration of what's possible with more action in it.
Yeah, no, I like it. And I think that especially because this suggests that she had a very difficult upbringing, or maybe he was even abusive, perhaps. That does suggest I can start to see the movie, because I mean he's gonna be like, well, can I see the script first, right? And then he's gonna be like, it didn't really happen like that. And she's gonna be like, yes, it did. And they're gonna have to she's gonna have to get people on her side, members of her family, to corroborate, to be like, yes, it did happen like that. So I can see a lot of conflict here. Try to phrase this in one sentence like this, and also the fact that it's an autobiographical film, like it's about them. That seems important, and especially if it's like an unflattering portrait of him, I imagine, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is so you've done a nice job of connecting the external journey and the internal journey, which is the external goal is to convince him to give up to sign over the rights to his life, and the internal journey is they need to reconnect, and in order for him to give that over, they need to be on better terms. So we're gonna want to highlight that as much as you can. I think that the basics are definitely here. So try to maybe rephrase it a bit along these lines and just be as concrete and specific as you can.
Okay.
And anything else? I guess not. If it were any other genre, I'd be like, well, what are we watching people do a little bit more? But I think I pretty much... the fact that you told us it's a reunion, that's really helpful. Yeah. And that gives us a whole cast of characters. And this could even be sort of a single location film if you wanted it to be. Something along the lines of... Was it called Krisha? There's a movie with that title that I would probably look into. If you're looking to write something like this, I believe that was... who was the filmmaker? Somebody should look that up. But somewhat of a similar kind of, like, really contained drama with the... like estranged family member or estranged parent kind of relationship.
Yeah, I was thinking because I was thinking because there's always kind of I find comedy in a lot of family dramas, so I was thinking of also August of Osage County.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Good comps, yeah. Okay, so this is mostly working. Yeah, just try to be specific. Make sure we understand what exactly the conflict is. Like the fact that this is going to be a negative picture of him, so she's going to have, in order to get him to agree to this, she's going to have to dredge up a lot of stuff from their past, and they're going to have to work through a lot of old issues.
Yeah.
Okay, any questions on this?
For me, no. That makes total sense.
Great. All right, thanks for sharing. And
Thank you.
check the comments. Nacho has some suggestions for you in the chat, so just scroll up a little bit there.
Okay, will do. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, we've got 25 minutes. I think we've got a few more to get through. We should have time. We have Smash Guy, and we have 99 Square. Okay, great. That'll probably be just enough time for everybody. Let's start with Smash Guy. Will do Flutter. Are you with us?
Yeah, sorry, just trying to find my mute button.
You're good. Do you want to read this out for us?
Yeah, so I have, I have Flutter, which the genre I'm going for is adventure, kids, and family. And the logline I put down is determined to prove his self-worth, an impractical butterfly sets off to find a new source of energy as a power-hungry murder hornet grows closer to changing his home's way of life forever.
Okay. Power-hungry murder hornet. That's pretty funny. So this is sort of like a Bug's Life or Ants or like those kind of like DreamWorks bug adventure kind of movies?
Yeah, essentially one of those types.
Okay, I'm with you. An impractical butterfly. That's unique. I wonder if I know what it means. Let me read the whole thing one more time. Sets off to find a new source of energy. Did they have a source of energy?
A lot of it would be, I guess I wasn't sure if I could fit it all into a log line, but a lot of it would be like an ongoing drought, and every flower in the area has dried out. It's got a lot of Moana vibes, or how would I put it? I guess that's a good comparison. Would be, well, I've taken a lot from like Moana and.
But so when we say source of energy, do you mean they have electricity in their butterfly colony, or what do you mean exactly?
No, it's more like a food source.
Oh, a food source. Oh, okay. So when you say source of energy, I think like a new fusion generator or something, like they have a sci-fi kind of technology available to them. That's not what you're saying?
No, it's not.
Okay. So new food source is a much better way of explaining that, I think.
Okay.
So new source of food. New food source. As a power-hungry murder hornet grows closer to changing his home's way of life is just pretty non-specific. So can you be more specific with the stakes? What's the hornet going to actually do?
She's looking to be the heir to the throne of this particular group of insects, just based on previous accomplishments and if that makes sense, of course.
The hornet's trying to take over the kingdom?
Yes.
Okay, and to what end? Like to sort of become a dictator, or like to become a sort of totalitarian villain?
Yeah, essentially.
Okay, so in that case, I would just be specific
more like
to
a last resort kind of deal, if that makes sense.
I see. So in that case, I would just clarify a little bit. It doesn't have to be exactly this, but as a power-hungry murder hornet grows closer to usurping the butterfly's father's throne or something like that. I'm not sure exactly what his role is in their colony, but we just want to be clear, like just changing our way of life, it doesn't feel very scary or impactful. But taking over the kingdom or eradicating the butterflies or something like that, chopping down the hive, whatever. Butterflies don't live in a hive. What am I saying? Where do butterflies live? Do they have a kind of colony?
I've been referring to it as a collection, but that's more or less like, how, you'll have mimic pictures and there'll be like pinned insects onto it. So that's usually referred to as a collection, but
Right. But butterflies don't really have a kind of
I've been hesitant on
hive
using the
structure.
term colony.
Right.
Yeah, I've been hesitant on using the term colony, and I think there's a specific thing they have, but it doesn't make sense. I don't want it to come off as not making sense because
That's
it's
okay.
very
Oh, apparently a group of butterflies is called a kaleidoscope. That's weird.
yeah. That's it. That was it.
Okay, well,
I was really hesitant on using that word.
No one's gonna know what that means for sure. Yeah.
Right.
Oh, some people say swarm. I don't know. Okay, so I think I see the very basics, but can I ask what exactly does he have to? So you say he sets off to find a new food source. So what's his objective? Do they actually know what the objective is, or is he just wandering out in the wilderness trying to find something?
He's determined to find this fabled mirage that is known as the Sea of the Sun, which is supposed to have resilient flowers that can pretty much thrive in all seasons.
Mm-hmm.
So
finding
that and
like
utilizing that right.
Or meadow. That sounds cool. So sets out to find a legendary pasture of like flowers that will be a great new food source for them. I don't know exactly how to phrase this, but maybe just instead of just saying sets off, if you give us a clearer sense of where they're going, like we say, Frodo the Hobbit is going across the entire world to throw a ring into the biggest volcano in the whole world, right? We don't just say he sets off to save Middle Earth. That would just be a little bit, we just wouldn't have a good sense of the trajectory of his journey. So if this is going to be, this is like a fantasy quest type story, right? So this is like a travel-based story where they go to different, landmarks along the way, gathering a team of different bugs, probably, I'm guessing?
Not so much a team. Definitely meet someone along the way.
Whom does he meet along the way?
Well, he'll come across a praying mantis.
Okay.
Who aids him in his journey, and then a lot of, I think he finds himself in a shady port town full of rats.
Okay.
So there's a lot of like.
That's cool.
Any particular danger that an insect would have in like a more southern U.S. type environment, like estuary type environments.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I would again get a little more concrete and specific. So we want to know what the villain is going to do. We want to know what exactly your main character is setting out to accomplish, or sort of like give us a sense of what we're going to be watching him, what terrain we're going to be watching him traverse, or what is he trying to find, like this fabled meadow or this legendary pasture, I think might be a nice way to put that. And then if there is a central relationship there, like a central team up with the praying mantis, and that's like the center point of the story, then that should definitely come up in the logline. If it's not as central, you may not need to mention it, considering there's already a lot going on here. But I think just focusing on these couple things will be helpful, and maybe pick a different word besides impractical. Do you mean he's kind of like head in the clouds, like a dreamer, or what do you mean exactly by impractical here?
So I had stargazing, but impractical is he's not very, he's not as specific or by the book compared to others. Like, he will chart. One of the character things in my initial draft was he would he'd do more nocturnal based activities, like he would chart stars, and he's into astrology, that type of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not something, butterflies don't stay up at night. That's more moth stuff, right?
I think so.
So it's
But so maybe find out what exactly you're getting at with the word impractical. Does it mean he's naive? Does it mean he's headed in the clouds? Does it mean
inexperienced was another word I was considering. It's just the I know in particular this the adjective has been really hard. Like that word that has been probably the most difficult part in nailing the log line.
Okay, well you can always, since it's just one word, and I think you know what you're going for, even if you can't find exactly the right expression of it, means that you can always find it down the line and swap it in once you find it. Yeah, maybe just keep thinking of what specifically you'll want to be saying here with the word impractical. I think people don't exactly know what a practical butterfly is. Do you know what I mean? Unless they, because I'm not even exactly sure what butterflies get up to most of the time. But in a world where they're all essentially fantasy characters, then I could see maybe you're referring to his but his like the way he solves problems, the way he approaches, resolving conflicts and things. Maybe has this sort of naive worldview.
Might also fit into this, but I think part of the character's journey is really the inexperience on his end. He's persistent, but he doesn't know fully what is really out there.
I see.
He knows it's, unlike others, he knows this is something he wants accomplished.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so yeah, maybe you'll have to fiddle with that adjective a little bit, but as for the rest of it, just be specific, clarify those stakes and the objective.
Would I need to be specific on location names or just
Not unless it's going to be a really big part of the movie, like Rango, for instance. It's about a lizard who he's trying to survive in the desert of the Southwest, right? And that's like a really big part of the sort of identity and feeling of that movie. So you could think maybe if we want to clarify, he's going on a journey across the Florida Panhandle, or he's going on a journey through the Everglades, or something like that. That would be really good to include. But if it's sort of a made-up kind of fantasy animated kingdom, then it doesn't quite matter as much. I would suggest trying it out.
Okay. I'll take a look at that log line as well, because that's a good point.
So Nacho has left something in the comments here, which might help as well. He says something like, after his village runs out of food, or something like that as the inciting incident. That's a good point, Nacho. If we highlight the reason that he needs to go on this quest, the inciting incident would be something like when their food source is threatened or when they run out of food. An adjective butterfly embarks on an epic journey in search of new flowers before a power-hungry murder hornet enslaves the butterflies, starves the people, usurps the throne, something like that. That's in the classroom chat, so feel free to take a look if you want to draw some ideas from that. And thank you for sharing. Any last questions on this one? This is a draft you've already written, right?
Yep.
Cool. Okay, so you'll be doing a rewrite in the class?
Yeah.
Great. Okay, looking forward to hearing more from this one. Hope this helps. And the fact that you already have a draft means that it'll be easier to rework the logline because you already know the basics of the story. Now you're just trying to find the best possible version of this one sentence.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you for sharing. I think we have one more. And let's check, or maybe two more. I'll see if we can do both. Let me find our first one. Okay, I heard it too from 99 Square. Go ahead. Can you read this out for us, please, Square?
Mm-hmm. After an impersonating monster comes after a bickering mother-daughter duo, they must set aside their differences to give themselves the best chance of survival.
All right. Thanks for that. So this is based on the creepypasta, I imagine, where...
of course.
This is a very common sort of horror trope here. Impersonating is probably not the right idea. We would probably say shapeshifting for the most part. Impersonate, I think we understand what that... By saying shapeshifting, we will get the idea that it can become actual people as well. Right. After a shapeshifting monster comes after a bickering mother-daughter duo. Well, a mother-daughter duo? Aren't all mothers and daughters a duo, sort of? So...
I mean, I guess that's just how my brain formulated the sentence.
I see what you mean. But who's the main character here? Let me ask that.
The daughter.
Okay. So bring the main character to the forefront.
Mm-hmm.
So a, adjective, whatever, teenager, or was she a teenager? Or how old is the character?
Yeah, she's a teenager.
Okay, so find an adjective to describe that. After an XXX teenager, she must. Well, let me see. So set aside their differences to give themselves the best chance of survival. Well, we could probably assume that of almost any survival situation. So I think we're going to want to know why specifically these characters, right? Like, what does she actually have to do in order to defeat the monster? Does the monster impersonate her mother and try to take over the mom's life, like Coraline sort of thing? Or what exactly is going on? Can you maybe just tell us a bit more about the story?
Well, I was just thinking about that more in the beginning of, like, it starts out as the monster impersonating her mother, but it's like they just have a bad relationship,
mm-hmm.
and they are like just forced in the situation together, and like just forced to confront all their problems. And by the end, when they like reconcile, is when they're finally able to defeat the monster.
Okay, what does the monster want to do?
That's a great question. I have like come up with motivations for the monster, but it like I imagine that it feels kind of corny, but like it used to be a human or something, and it is like lost its daughter, so it's just that's why it's going after all the mothers so it can take their daughters or something, you know?
So is it trying to kidnap the kid, or is it trying to take over the mom's life and be the new mom?
I would say kidnap. I mean, I don't know. Like I feel like both of those, you know?
Well, but you can't do both of those, can you? The second she takes the
Right.
kid away from the house, you're no longer gonna think it's your mom. So maybe just
Well-
think a little more about, because like we can't quite know what the stakes are unless we know what the monster is trying to do. If it's trying to kill them, that's easy to understand, right? And if the daughter now is forced to sort of save her mom's life from this monster that's trying to kill her, I think maybe that's the movie there, right? Because if you're saying they need to put aside their differences, and so like imagine you have this is almost kind of like fairy tale style storytelling, kind of like Coraline or Labyrinth or something like that, right? Like you get in a big fight with your mom and you're just like, I wish she would just go away sometimes. I wish she would be replaced by somebody else. Then the monster shows up and it actually tries to do that. It's like, I'll be your mom. Let's kill the old one. And now the girl is forced to actually save her estranged, or not, they may not be estranged, but they're not getting along well, whatever. She's forced to go out of her way to protect and save her mom from this thing. Do you see how that might actually give us a clearer shape of the story?
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe think along those lines. So we want to clarify what does the monster actually want to do, in which case we're going to learn what the stakes really are. And that's going to help us understand what we're doing over the course of the story. Like, if the girl, I can sort of see it if the girl is like, has to sort of placate this imposter mom and like pretend like she's helping her search that house for the real mom and pretending like she's going to help her kill it. So she has to trick the creature into thinking, okay, I'll be your new daughter. Sure, that's fine, but really needs to find a way out of the situation. I can see a very good, maybe even very completely contained, very tense horror story based off that setup. You don't have to do that, but that's just me sort of taking what you have here and thinking, how could this really work as a feature based on, or just like in the logline format. So yeah, maybe think, what does the villain want? And that's gonna help us understand what the main character has to do in order to get away. It's not just putting their differences aside, which is sort of an internal or relationship kind of based goal. And we can imagine almost any survival scenario you're gonna need to put your differences aside with somebody. But if it's like, I have a big fight with my mom, and now I need to save her from the monster, I totally see it. So maybe consider that and use from that whatever you want.
Alrighty.
Any questions on this?
I don't have any. I think I understand pretty well.
Cool. Thanks for sharing. This sounds cool. I would definitely watch this.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. We got one more, I think, right? I think maybe somebody posted an extra one. Okay. So we'll
Two more.
Oh, two more. Okay, I'll make time to do both. Let's start with Robert. Incarnate Quantum War.
Okay, so the logline is a brilliant military scientist. Oh, are you just going to copy paste?
Oh, yeah, I'm going to mark it up on here. You can read it out.
A brilliant military scientist believes the sole survivor of countless battles is the key to winning a hopeless war. They will have to escape a pursuing cyborg army before starting a last-ditch project to save the world.
All right, thanks for that. So, sci-fi movie, a brilliant military scientist believes the sole survivor of countless battles is the key to winning a hopeless war. Okay, but they will have to, who's they? Both of them?
The scientist and that soldier.
Oh, okay, so they have to team up, basically. They will have to escape a pursuing cyborg army before starting a last-ditch project to save the world. This is... I mean, I'm intrigued by the big ideas of this, but it's a little bit too big at the moment. I'm having trouble actually figuring out what some of these things mean and what's going on here. Let me maybe ask a couple questions. So, you say the sole survivor of countless battles. Battles between whom? Battle against whom?
There's a opposing force called the Transcenders. It takes place in the future. The Transcenders are synthetic humans, basically. They've transitioned from being normal people to uploading their minds into computers.
Oh,
So
okay.
they want to wipe out biological life that refuses to be uploaded.
Okay, so this is the cyborg army that you were talking about.
Right.
It is. Okay. So we want to bring this up a little bit earlier because if we add it, if we say they have to escape a pursuing cyborg army, I don't understand the connection to the first part of the logline here. So with a big world-building sci-fi like this, we need to be just careful how we define and explain things. So we might want to say something like, let me see. So the scientist believes that the survivor of these battles is the key to winning a war. So the inciting incident is the scientist teams up with the soldier?
Pretty
or
much, yeah.
recruits the soldier?
Yeah, she's just trying to get him back to their main facility because he's in like a forward field hospital after one of these battles, and so she goes to interview him and see if he's suitable for this project that they have an idea for.
Okay, and do they think he has superpowers or something? Why do they think he's going to be the one to save the world?
Because he's been the sole survivor of many battles, so they just kind of assume like, well, there's something that he has like an X factor. They don't know what it is, but they figure it's kind of like he's been battle proven already. So she gets sent out to investigate like, well, is this guy like super good at combat? Is he a sociopath and doesn't feel stress, or like what exactly is going on with him?
And can I ask? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, the doctor just assumes that his performance in battle and always surviving is proof enough that he is the person that they're gonna need.
Okay, and is the scientist the main character? Would you say, or is the soldier more the main character?
A little bit more on his end. But,
his end.
She's a very strong character as well. They're pretty much like, I don't know, like John Connor and Sarah Connor. They're both pretty important characters, you know.
Right. But in the first movie, Sarah's the main character, and in the second movie, John's the main character. So we should maybe frame it a little bit more from his perspective if he's going to be your sort of central protagonist. So in this case, we could say the sole survivor of countless battles against an evil cyborg army. Start it like that. Something like that. Oh, did I spell Evilborg? Evilborg. Maybe that could be somebody make an action figure called Evilborgs. After against a cyborg army. Something like this. Maybe frame it a bit more in terms of the protagonist first. So frame soldier as protagonist up front. Is recruited by a military scientist. And so we're going to want to make it seem as active as possible. So something like, and he must escort her, or he must defend her, protect her, whatever it is, are they trying to get away from the army? So I would maybe give us a sense of the goalpost, right? So are they trying to cross an ocean? Are they trying to get across a border? Are they trying to, if you can give us a clear sense of where they're going, what the objective is.
Yeah, they're trying to return back to, I guess, like their rearward positions that aren't so close to the enemy, because once the enemy discovers that she's that close to the front and he's there, they know who he is too, because they've, it's like, it's futuristic, so the computers are all networked and they've seen him in battle and they know he keeps escaping, so they really want to capture him and her and upload both of them so that they'll have all of his, whatever makes him special, they can put into their machines.
Okay.
And all the military secrets that she knows due to her position can also be uploaded. So they're just trying to get away, get to a safe zone, wherever that is.
Okay, cool. So in that case, I think you might. And does he need her? Like, why is she so important?
She's the head of research for military weaponry and stuff like that. So.
But if she died, would humanity be screwed?
If she died?
Yeah.
She's just a very important person, basically, where it would accelerate the defeat that they're facing.
Okay. I guess I wasn't quite grasping why he needs her. If he's the sort of super soldier guy, and if she dies, can't he still save the world without her?
No, so the plan in the story is, her plan is, well, so the Transcenders, they have their greatest soldier, and they just copy him and download him onto these fighting machines. So she wants to clone this guy And
Oh.
she's going to lead the project to do that. So
Oh, okay.
she's the head of that particular project.
Okay, so she has like a plan to use him, and she's the only one that can save humanity by using him.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay. So you might want to clarify that a little bit. So I would maybe think a little more like this. The sole survivor of countless battles against a cyborg army must escort a military scientist to their home base before, or else blank. The cyborgs destroy all of humanity. Are they trying to kill all the people, I'm guessing?
Yeah, upload them or kill them. One of the two.
Okay, so I'll say like something like before a malicious AI absorbs all of humanity. You don't have to use that, but that's just an example of what this logline might sort of look like. And escort the scientist to the home base. You might, don't use this exact thing. You might want to just clarify why we're doing that. But yeah, try to lay it out in one sentence, framing it a little bit more around the main character here. And make sure we know what we're up against before we start adding in elements. Like, if you're going to mention a cyborg army, we have to understand he was the survivor of battles against that army before we'll know what's going on, really. So something a little bit more like this. I can copy and paste this into the... This is not perfect, but I'll paste this into the chat for you. And maybe just go from here.
All right, thank you.
Any questions on this? Does this make sense? How you can kind of... now that you've explained it, I am starting to see the story a bit more. It was just... The way it was laid out was sort of introducing new elements halfway through the first sentence. So do you see? I was getting a little confused by just the presentation of it, but I think I'm seeing it now that you explain it. Do you have any? Did this make sense?
Yeah, I'll keep working on it.
Cool. Thanks for this. Okay, we have one more, then I'll stop for last questions before we wrap up. I know we're a little bit over time. Let's do Student 01 with Animal Story.
Hi. So the storyline is not fully developed, but this is just a thought that I caught while you guys are talking.
That's fine. Yeah, can you read it for us?
Yes. Conflict between people and wild animals. When the train transporting the wild animals from a deep forest got into an accident, and most animals died, some survived and escaped, and caused chaos in the nearby villages. As the story develops, people treat and exploit those animals more cruel than the damage and threat from the animals. It makes the point that the people are more dangerous than those wild animals.
Okay.
So,
go ahead.
So there is no specific hero in this plot, but basically it is a group between the animals and people. So how there are some animals, like animals can be sometimes compassionate, and the people can be more cruel to animals. So that's the point that the story outlines. Basically the plot is like somewhere in deep jungle, maybe African forest. So they want to transport animals to zoos all over the world, and that train got due to an accident and caused a lot of chaos in the nearby villages in that forest close by. So how the story develops and what the business people want that are transporting the animals want, and so there is a conflict between three entities. One is the villagers in the forest, and the animals, and the business people who want to transport those animals. So how the dynamics happen, and so in the end, the animals look much better than the people. That's what the plot
Okay.
is. I don't have that's not a story developed, but
That's okay. Yeah, you don't need to have all the answers right now. But so for the purposes of a logline, you don't really need to tell us like the themes of the story. We don't need to go on to suggest the point that it's going to make. I think that we just need to say what's happening in the story. So I would lose this last line here, and I would reframe this sort of like when a zoo train derails in. Did you say it was rural India?
India or Africa, both are fine.
Okay, so you'll have to pick your location. So I'll just give you an example. So when a zoo train derails, great intro, and I love this premise. Let me just ask: are these talking animals? Like, are we doing human?
No, just wild animals. So it's people, real people, and real animals.
Oh, okay. So I think you definitely do need to find a human main character.
The movie can have VFX, but the outline is like it is all real.
Okay, so you're going to need to find a character to frame this logline around. I know you said there's a lot of characters, and that's okay, but for a logline, we need to focus on somebody. So I'm just going to pick a random example. You don't have to use this, but we might say something like, who might the hero be? It might be, we could say it's like a young zookeeper, or we could say, go ahead.
I think I thought about it. Maybe the train driver itself can.
Oh, sure.
He causes the problem, and somehow he regrets it, and somehow tries to be rectify as much as he can.
Okay, sure. So I'm going to just pick a random trait for this guy. You don't have to use this, but we might say something like an animal-hating train driver must, organize the survivors and lead the group of, humans and zoo animals to safety. Something like that. You don't have to use that. I'm just picking animal hate. Like if we say he hates animals, then we can clearly see this will be the journey of him coming to understand why animals are important, or that people are worse than animals, like you were saying. So you don't have to use that exact thing, but we're just trying to pick an adjective that is going to suggest a journey for the character. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm thinking mostly of a lazy train driver. So basically, because of his recklessness, so it happens.
Oh, reckless.
Particularly no, he's just lazy at his job.
So, but he caused the accident?
Yeah,
he did.
Somehow, because
okay.
Of his,
Okay, we might even want to include that in the inciting incident too, then, because that's going to lead to a sense of responsibility for him to fix the problem, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
So when he accidentally derails his zoo train in the rural Indian wilderness, might be a better place to start here. A reckless train driver must, we might say, organize the survivors and lead the group if he's going to be like a leadership position, or maybe it's just going to be he needs to survive. But your comps might be something like, have you seen Life of Pi?
Yeah. So I was imagining that, but this is no. But they try to coexist among those situations in a boat. But this one is like there are three aspects. One is a business side of things, like the zoo company or is buying those. They have their own interests. They don't care much about certain aspects. So in the middle, this train driver, the guilt and try to make it a better.
I see. Okay. So yeah, those are all going to be implied in the logline. So I'm just going to copy and paste this to you. You can modify this however you want. You don't have to use this. I'm just going to put it in the chat so you can copy and paste it to your own document and change it as you like from there.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. And yeah, let's try to make it one sentence. Just focus on the plot. Like, when inciting incident, an adjective protagonist must conflict or else stakes. And the stakes here are they need to survive. So it's life and death. You say this feels like an action adventure story. I might describe the genre as action adventure.
Okay. Thank you.
Sounds cool though. I'd love to read this. Thank you for sharing. Okay, we're at the end of the class. Thank you all so much for being here this whole time. I'm going to open the floor just to last questions about anything we've talked about today before we close things out. So, anything you guys would still like to know? Anything about Script Camp or about the process or about screenwriting? The floor is open. What would you guys like to know?
I'm having like a bit of an issue, I guess, trying to organize this story into like a log line.
Okay.
I was wondering if you could send that thing that's like that kind of tells you how to make one.
Oh, sure. I can go back to the template if that's what you're talking about. As I'm bringing this up, just so everybody knows, you can vote yes on our poll in the chat. So go into the chat, you should see a small poll where you can click the blue numbers. If you're intending on signing up, but you haven't done so far, you can click that number 1 and you can get instant access to all of our chat channels. It won't you won't have to pay anything right away. That's just your intention to sign up. So feel free to click there if you plan to join but have not yet done so. Okay, so this is for Paul. Here's the template for loglines. Or did you mean you had a logline you wanted to work on right now? we're 10 minutes over time, but I'm glad to do that either in the chat channels over the next couple days, or you could bring it to the upcoming lab.
Yeah, I like, I'm having trouble, like, I guess, ordering or like putting in order the story in my brain in like a way that fits something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know. It's
read it out loud. If you've got a logline to read.
I don't have one yet.
Oh, you don't have one yet. Okay.
Something I'm having like a bit of problem with is like figuring out how to fit it into that.
Okay. Why don't you make either send me a message or an email, or make a post on one of our chat channels, and I can look at it later today.
Okay, yeah.
That'd be fine. I'd be glad to do that. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Other questions about Script Camp, the upcoming boot camps, or any of our classes, or the process, or anything like this?
So, just quick question: for the $29 a month, you're just being charged $29 a month for the year, or is it a cumulative, like the 40% off, or one, like if you pay for the yearly subscription up front?
If you get the yearly, you get it all up front, but it is saving 40% on the price if you if you had paid it monthly.
Got it. Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions? If not, we'll say thank you so much for coming. Check out these other great classes or fantasy club today at 5 in this server. We also have table reads coming up at 2. So 2 other events just in Script Camp today. And we're going to be having plenty of other events coming up. So check out those other servers: Script Camp, Word Camp, Film Camp, Creator Camp, Toon Camp, Code Camp, and Lingo Camp, for plenty more coming up. So your membership gets you access to all of those things, every event on all of those servers. Thank you, guys. We're looking forward to seeing you more. Remember to keep working on your loglines and to come back for week 1, which is on January 8th. So that's in about a month. So you have plenty of time to get those basics down. We're glad to answer any more questions that you have in the meantime in our many chat channels on the server, and give you more feedback or help you shape it more. And we'd love to see you around the server soon. So thanks so much for coming. We'll call it now, and we'll see you guys for your next Script Camp class or event. Have a great rest of your Sunday.